What happens when the world's most ruthless radio host meets a prince who's burned every bridge behind him? You won't believe what unfolds when Howard Stern decides to pull no punches with Prince Harry. What began as a simple promotional appearance quickly spiraled into an explosive confrontation that had producers scrambling and security on edge. The tension inside Studio 69 was thick, enough to cut with a knife. What follows is the moment when royal protocol collided with New York brutality. The atmosphere in Howard Stern's Manhattan studio was already charged with anticipation. Prince Harry had arrived half an hour late, his security detail causing a minor commotion in the lobby as they swept the building. Robin Quivers sensed something was off the moment Harry walked through the studio doors, his jaw set tight, his usual polished smile nowhere to be found. The Duke of Sussex looked like a man carrying the weight of 1,000 grievances, and Howard, ever the predator when it came to detecting weakness, immediately picked up on the scent. "So here he is, Prince Harry," Howard began, his voice carrying that familiar edge long-time listeners knew meant trouble was brewing. "The royal who gave up his crown for Hollywood. How's that working out for you?" Harry shifted uncomfortably in his chair, the leather creaking beneath him. "It's going well, Howard. We're here to talk about my upcoming projects." Hold on, Howard interrupted, leaning forward with that predatory grin that had made celebrities squirm for decades. "I've got to ask you something that's been bothering me. You spent years trashing your family on every platform that would have you, and now you're surprised they don't want you at Christmas dinner? Help me understand the logic here." The question hung in the air like a live grenade. Harry's media handler, sitting just outside the camera's view, visibly tensed. This wasn't part of the agreed-upon talking points. Robin shot Howard a look that said she knew exactly where this was going. And it wasn't going to be pretty. "That's a very reductive way to frame a complex family situation," Harry replied, his voice carrying the first hint of the steel beneath his calm exterior. "I've been careful to speak my truth while still respecting theirs." Howard's laugh was sharp and cutting. "Come on, Harry. You sat on Oprah's couch and basically called your family racist. You wrote a book airing every piece of dirty laundry you could think of. And now you're talking about respect? That's rich, even for royalty." The temperature in the studio seemed to drop. Harry's hands, which had been resting casually on the arms of his chair, now gripped them tightly. His security detail, watching from the control room, exchanged uneasy glances. This was not the interview they had expected. "Howard, I think there's been a misunderstanding about what we're here to discuss," Harry said, his tone clipped and aristocratic. "My team was very clear about the parameters of this conversation." "Oh, were they?" Howard raised an eyebrow in mock surprise. "See, here's the thing, Your Highness. This isn't some puff piece about your meditation app or whatever wellness nonsense you're selling this week. This is my show, and when you come into my house, we talk about what I want to talk about. And what I want to talk about is how you've become the most successful professional victim in modern history." The words hit Harry like a physical blow. Robin saw his face flush red, that famous Windsor temper beginning to surface. Fred Norris, at the soundboard, hovered over the dump button, sensing that things were about to get very real. Very fast. "Professional victim?" Harry's voice rose. "Are you serious? Do you have any idea what my family put me through? What they put my wife through?" "Oh, here we go," Howard said, settling back in his chair like a man getting comfortable for a long show. "Tell me all about how hard it was being a prince. The terrible burden of living in palaces and having every need catered to, while the rest of us were working real jobs." "I'm all ears," sarcasm dripped from every word. Harry was clearly struggling to maintain his composure. His media training was warring with his instincts, and Howard could see the conflict playing out across his face. "You don't know what you're talking about," Harry said through gritted teeth. "The media attention, the constant scrutiny, the lies they printed about Meghan." "The lies?" Howard pounced. Which lies exactly? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like your wife got exactly what she wanted. She married a prince, got the title, got the platform, and when the real work of being royal got too hard, you both ran off to California to cash in on the victimhood narrative. Harry shot up from his chair so quickly that his microphone stand nearly toppled over. That's enough. You don't get to talk about my wife like that. Sit down, Harry, Howard said calmly, not even looking up from his notes. We're just getting started. You wanted to promote your little projects? This is what comes with the territory. You can't play the victim for years and then get upset when someone calls you on it. Harry remained standing, fists clenched at his sides. You have no idea what we've been through. The death threats, the harassment, the way they treated Meghan from day one. Right, the racism thing again, Howard cut in. Tell me something. If your family's so terrible and so racist, why do you keep trying to get back in their good graces? Why keep showing up at the big events? If they're such monsters, why not cut ties completely and move on? The question cut straight to the heart of Harry's contradictions, and everyone in the studio knew it. His face was flushed, his composure hanging by a thread. One of his security team spoke quietly into his earpiece. Because they're still my family, Harry said, his voice tight. Despite everything, I still love them. But that doesn't mean I'll stay silent about their behavior. So, let me get this straight, Howard said, clearly enjoying himself now. They're racist monsters who drove your wife to the brink, but you still want to grab dinner with them on Sunday? You trash them in every interview, write a tell-all book exposing their secrets, and then you're shocked they don't roll out the red carpet? That makes perfect sense. The studio fell silent except for the low hum of the equipment. Harry was breathing heavily, torn between storming out and salvaging what was left of the interview. But Howard wasn't done. He never was when he smelled blood. And right now, Prince Harry was bleeding all over Studio 69. You know what really gets me about you, Harry? Howard said, his voice taking on that dangerous tone that had ended countless celebrity reputations. You had everything, literally everything, born into the most privileged family on the planet. Millions of people would give anything just to shake your hand. And you threw it all away because your actress wife didn't like curtsying to your grandmother. Do you realize how that looks to regular people struggling to pay rent? Harry's jaw worked furiously, the muscles in his neck standing out like steel cables. You have absolutely no understanding of what we went through, he said, his voice shaking with restrained fury. None. The institution tried to destroy us from the inside out, Harry said, his voice trembling with restrained anger. The institution? Howard laughed harshly. You mean your family? The same family that gave you millions of dollars, multiple, homes, and a platform to do whatever charity work you pleased? That institution? Tell me, what exactly did they do that was so terrible? Did they make you cut ribbons at hospital openings? Force you to wave at adoring crowds? The horror. Robin shifted uncomfortably in her seat, recognizing the signs of Howard in full predator mode. She'd seen him dismantle plenty of guests before, but there was something especially brutal about watching him tear into a member of the royal family in real time. They leaked stories about us to the press, Harry shot back, his voice rising with each word. They used us as scapegoats to protect other members of the family. They stood by while the tabloids destroyed my wife's reputation. And your response, Howard countered, not missing a beat, was to run to Netflix and Spotify and make millions telling your side of the story. Funny how that works, isn't it? You got paid handsomely for your victimhood. Most people who get treated badly by their families don't walk away with $100 million deals. The accusation hung in the air like poison. Harry's security team was visibly on edge, two of them inching closer to the studio door. His publicist stood behind the glass, frantically making throat-cutting gestures. But Howard was locked in now, relentless, unflinching. "That money was never about revenge," Harry said, his voice shaking. "It was about financial independence, so they couldn't control us anymore." "Financial independence?" Howard's tone dripped with disbelief. "You were already financially independent. Your father was giving you millions every year. You had trust funds most people couldn't spend in 10 lifetimes. But that wasn't enough, was it? You wanted Hollywood money. You wanted to be celebrities, not royals. We wanted our freedom," Harry exploded, finally losing the last shred of composure. "We wanted to raise our children without them being used as pawns in some sick game of palace politics." "Freedom," Howard repeated, pouncing on the word. "You just moved from one fishbowl to another. You went from being scrutinized by the British press to being scrutinized by the American press. The only difference is now you're paying taxes in California instead of having them paid for you in England. Some freedom." The studio fell into a tense silence. Harry's face was flushed red. Beads of sweat formed on his forehead despite the cool air. Fred kept his hand hovering over the dump button, ready to cut the feed if things went too far. "At least here, we can speak our truth without being silenced," Harry finally said, his voice heavy with emotion. "Your truth again," Howard scoffed. "You keep saying that like it's some kind of magic spell. Let me tell you something about truth, Harry. The truth is, you were born with every advantage a human being could possibly have. And you squandered it, because you couldn't handle the responsibility that came with privilege." "Responsibility?" Harry's voice cracked. "You want to talk about responsibility? I served 2 tours in Afghanistan while my family stayed safe in their palaces. I created the Invictus Games for wounded veterans. I've dedicated my life to service. And you sit here acting like I'm some kind of spoiled brat?" "All of that was admirable," Howard conceded, his tone softening just enough to give Harry hope. "But then you married someone who clearly had other plans for your life, and suddenly all that service wasn't enough. Suddenly, you needed to be famous in a different way." The mention of Meghan was like throwing gasoline on an open flame. Harry's entire body tensed. For a moment, Robin thought he might actually lunge across the desk. "Leave my wife out of this," he said, his voice dangerously low. "She has nothing to do with our decision to step back from royal duties." "Nothing to do with it?" Howard raised his eyebrows theatrically. "Come on, Harry. We all watched the timeline. You were perfectly happy being a working royal until she came along. Then suddenly the whole family was racist, the institution was toxic, and you needed to escape to Hollywood. Are you really going to sit there and tell me that's just a coincidence?" "She opened my eyes to things I'd been blind to my whole life," Harry said, his voice trembling. "She helped me see how dysfunctional everything really was. Or maybe," Howard said, leaning forward with a predatory smile, "she saw an opportunity to become the most famous woman in the world, and convinced you to burn down your entire life to make it happen. Ever consider that possibility?" The words hit Harry like a physical blow. His face went pale, and he swayed slightly where he stood. The accusation was so sharp, so brutal, that even Robin winced. "You have no right to talk about my wife like that," Harry said, his voice barely above a whisper but filled with venom. "I have every right," Howard shot back. "This is America, remember? Free speech. The thing you came here for. You can't have it both ways, Harry. You can't cash in on your royal drama and then get upset when people ask uncomfortable questions about your motivations." Harry was trembling now, his entire body vibrating with rage and humiliation. His security team waited for a signal to step in. The prince stood there, caught between defending his wife and salvaging whatever remained of the interview. See if he know what your real problem is, Harry? Howard continued, sensing his target weakening. You want to be seen as a victim and a hero at the same time. You want sympathy for leaving your family and admiration for speaking out against them, but you can't have both. You made your choice when you aired your dirty laundry in public, and now you have to live with the consequences. The studio was silent enough to hear a pin drop. Harry's hands were clenched into fists, his breathing heavy. His media handler behind the glass looked ready to pull the plug. But Howard wasn't finished. The saddest part is, Howard said, his voice dropping to an almost mournful tone, you actually had the chance to be something special. You could have been the people's prince, the one who bridged the gap between the old monarchy and the modern world. Instead, you chose to become a professional complainer, living off your family trauma. And for what? A mansion in Montecito and a Netflix deal? Something inside Harry finally snapped. The last thread of restraint broke. You know what, Howard? His voice was no longer measured or polite. It was raw, furious, and full of years of pent-up pain. You sit here in your little studio, hiding behind your microphone, making millions by tearing people down. And you think that gives you the right to judge my life? You're nothing but a shock jock who peaked 30 years ago, desperately trying to stay relevant by attacking anyone who walks through that door. The studio erupted into chaos. Howard's eyes widened in genuine surprise. In all his years of pushing celebrities to their limits, few had ever struck back this hard. Robin's mouth fell open. Fred's hand moved toward the emergency broadcast controls. "Oh, now we're getting somewhere," Howard said, his voice tight. Harry had clearly hit a nerve. "So when someone calls you on your crap, you attack their career? Very royal of you, Your Highness." Royal? Harry laughed, but it was a hollow, bitter sound. You want to talk about royal, Howard. Royal is watching your mother die in a car crash when you're 12 years old, because she was being chased by photographers who wanted to make money off her misery. Royal is walking behind his mother's coffin while millions watch, forced to appear composed as his world collapses inside. Royal is having every mistake dissected across headlines for the amusement of people who've never faced real pain. The words poured from Harry like a dam breaking. Raw, unfiltered, and beyond the reach of any media training. "And you know what else is royal, Howard?" he shouted, his voice cracking with fury. "Royal is serving your country in combat while your family begs you not to go. Royal is coming home to help wounded veterans while battling your own trauma, only for people like you to question your service because it doesn't fit their story." Howard tried to interject, but Harry wasn't listening anymore. "You want to talk about my wife? Fine. She gave up her entire life, her career, her friends, her family, to serve a country that rejected her from day one. She endured racist attacks from your precious tabloids while pregnant with our son. And when she begged for help because she was suicidal, the institution told her it would look bad." Even Howard was momentarily speechless. Harry's pain filled the room like electricity. "But please," Harry said, voice dripping with venom, "tell me more about how privileged we are. Tell me more about how easy our lives have been, while you sit in your studio making millions off other people's humiliation. At least when I left my family, I was honest. You've been hiding behind that microphone for decades, too scared to face the world without your entourage." Howard's face turned crimson. "Listen here, you spoiled little—" "No, you listen." Harry exploded, slamming his hand on the desk so hard papers flew and coffee splashed. "I'm done being told how I should feel about my own life. For 30 years I was told what to wear, what to say, who to marry, and even how to grieve. I was a performing monkey in a golden cage. And when I finally broke free, People like you tried to drag me back because my happiness doesn't fit your narrative. Security began to move toward the door, uncertain whether to step in. Harry's voice was shaking with fury now. You think I'm playing the victim? You're damn right I'm a victim of a system that chews people up and sells their pain for profit. I'm a victim of the same media that destroyed my mother and tried to destroy my wife. And you, Howard, are part of that machine. Howard tried to regain control. You're having a meltdown on live radio. Meltdown? Harry roared. You want to see a meltdown? A meltdown is being told your feelings don't matter. It's watching your brother choose the institution over his own blood. It's realizing your family cares more about their image than your mental health. This isn't a meltdown, Howard. This is clarity. He paced like a trapped animal. You want to make money off my pain? Fine, but don't expect me to stay silent while you do it. Robin tried to intervene. Harry, maybe we should take a break. No breaks, Harry snapped. I'm done with breaks, with damage control, with pretending to make everyone else comfortable. Howard wanted the real Prince Harry? Well, congratulations. Here I am. Without handlers, without filters. Howard raised a hand, trying to ease the tension. Look, Harry, I think we've all said some things. Some things? Harry laughed bitterly. You've spent the last hour tearing apart my family, mocking my trauma, and calling me a fraud. And now you want to play nice? The studio went silent. Harry stood in the middle of the room, breathing hard, his public persona shattered beyond repair. Then he straightened, smoothed his shirt, and looked directly into the camera. You know what's funny, Howard? He said calmly. You think you've exposed me. But all you've done is prove exactly why I left. This circus, this cruelty, is what killed my mother. It's what they tried to do to my wife. The only difference is we're stronger than they ever were. He unclipped his microphone and placed it gently on Howard's desk. I came here thinking I could have an honest conversation about my life. Instead, I walked into an ambush. I hope your listeners enjoyed the show, because this is the last time I'll ever subject myself to this kind of abuse. Harry turned to leave, his security flanking him. At the door, he stopped and looked back one last time. You asked why I don't just cut ties completely, he said quietly. I think I finally have my answer. I kept believing people could change, that decency still mattered. But you've reminded me that some people will always choose cruelty over compassion, ratings over respect. He straightened his shoulders. Congratulations, Howard. You just reminded me exactly why I made the right choice to walk away. With that, he left the studio, leaving behind a stunned host, a speechless crew, and the echo of a door closing on one of the most explosive interviews in radio history.